Hello, friend. This is Ryan Hicks of TalkToProfit.com, and today I want to talk about something very important because this is the time of year when I'm recording this video in November. This is when people are planning vacations. They're planning to take this time off. They know that this company they deal with is going to be off during 2 weeks during December, and there's all kinds of excuse making and planning around doing less and being less and having less because of the holidays. There's always a bunch of excuses. Now, some people will point to, oh, well, in the Old Testament, and they'll start babbling about holy days and feasts and things that were for carnal people. Those things were all just to point to Jesus. They weren't for carnal people to just continue on following these feasts and these holidays and doing all this stuff. And yet modern men have more holidays than ever were in the Old Testament, all kinds of things. Many of them are just commercial things, obviously, to make money, from greeting card companies to restaurants to whoever makes money off people taking off during that time. But you know who makes the most money from you taking off, from you being weak, from you pulling back during this time when there is so much opportunity for you to excel? It's the other people who aren't doing what you're doing. They're not following the world's way of doing things. They're not following average people. They're not taking up mediocrity. And I know some of you will say, well, I worked so hard all year, I need a vacation. You take a 2-week vacation. It's insane. They've done plenty of studies that have shown that ultra successful people who are very hardworking, work very long hours, get the same amount of recharge and refresh from a 3-day weekend that they do from a 2-week vacation. People are just lying to themselves. And what happens between a 3-day vacation and a 2-week vacation is a massive, massive, massive loss of momentum. And this is something that can't be quantified because so many people are losing momentum every single week. They're taking 2 days off. And then when they get into work Monday, they're just piddling around for the first half of the day. So they've already lost momentum, and they have to build up until they get to about midweek. Then they start getting in that groove again, only to lose it all by Friday, where they start slacking off and getting ready for the weekend again. And they continue that rut, that up and down cycle, never really gaining momentum, always losing it. And then they cap it all off by the end of the year with a massive loss of momentum, taking a huge vacation and then wondering why they're not getting the results they want in life, wondering why they're just getting little tiny bonuses, wondering why their business isn't as successful as it could have been. These are things that do not have to affect you. Listen, I understand this is not common mentality. This is not what most people are going to tell you. Most people would argue against this. They would just babble about being a workaholic. You shouldn't do that much, or you need to take a break, or you need to relax. They have all kinds of excuses, an endless amount of excuses. Everything from they blame their family. Well, I need to spend time with my family. Or they'll blame, well, I'm just losing energy. I need to get a recharge. And they have all these excuses, never looking at any of the actual data. Because if they really just wanted to recharge, they realize that a 3-day weekend does the same as the 2-week vacation and massive loss of momentum they're going to have. It gets the same results. Matter of fact, in many cases, it's better because of the fact you don't have that huge crash of momentum and that long period of time in that stagnation. Because getting back to work after that period of time of not working and not being productive and not being useful is very difficult for most people, especially average people who do that in the first place. They're already not giving their all. They're already not giving 100%. They don't do all things unto the Lord. So they don't get the good results in the first place. And you got people who are just living average lives, being average, and they're losing the momentum of even being average. So they limp into the new year as a loser because they're worse than average now. They're not even where average was. They're below that at this point. All because they choose to follow the world, and it's just infinite preoccupation with being entertained and not being productive. I'm not telling you shouldn't spend time with your family, or you shouldn't have quality time with your spouse, or any of these things like that. You can do all that and still be ultra productive. This is the thing people don't seem to realize. The fact is, when they go and spend their 8 hours of work each day, they're not working the whole time. If they spent their entire time at work actually working instead of looking up sports scores and checking social media and babbling about the politics of the world or the weather or whatever nonsense. If they actually work the time they're supposed to be working, they get so much done. They have plenty of time to spend quality time with their kids each and every day, with their spouse each and every day, do all the extracurricular activities. They have all kinds of time for that. There's some great benefit that people don't grasp when they're not being ultra productive and when they're just going through life doing just enough to get by, just enough to not get fired, just enough to maybe get a cost of increase or inflation bonus at the end of the year or some pity holiday bonus. People don't grasp how important it is to be productive and how that translates into you being able to actually do the things you want to do that are outside of work. And I've counseled and coached so many people over the years who've had issues with productivity, and not one of them is using that extra free time that they're not using in being productive and actually quality time with their spouse or their kids. It just doesn't happen. They all talk that. Everybody uses that as an excuse. They'll say even, oh, I want to get off work immediately because I want to spend time with my kids. And you actually, what are you doing with your kids? Well, they're off with their friends or whatever. They're not even spending time with their kids. It's just an excuse. Like just existing at home is spending time with your kids, even if your kids aren't there. It's insanity, but people keep telling themselves this. They keep lying to themselves. And I don't think it's on purpose. I don't think it's malicious. They're not trying to lie to other people either. It is just a rut people can get into, and it's very destructive. And it's not living up to your fullest potential. It's not living up to being the image of Christ. It's not living up to being like God. And we go through life co-creating with God. We go through life creating the reality we experience. And most people don't want to accept that, but that's the reality. But what are you choosing? What are you going to create? Are you going to be that person that just sits around doing nothing? Just doing the bare minimum? God didn't do that. Are you going to be that person who is active and creative and constantly producing and having more activities, new adventures, new ideas, new concepts, new business endeavors, always doing something, always producing, always active? Or that person that's, well, it's getting that time of year. It's about time to become a loser. It's about time to do less. Got to shrink back. Have to take vacations. Have to do this. Have to do that. Got to live up to the world's standard, the world's way of doing things. Got to be mediocre. If you'll take up the mentality of, I'm going to be like God. I'm going to be always working. I'm going to be always active, always productive. Yes, you have your rest. Yes, you have your relaxation. Yes, you have some days off. And they're actually real days off where you actually spend time with your family. You actually have quality time with your spouse. Not just excuses, not just being in the same room as them as you're watching movies or something useless. But if you actually get at it, especially this time of year, and be more productive, be ultra productive, you will absolutely leave everybody else way in the rearview mirror. Because they're all stopping. They're all coming to a standstill in the race of life. The average person, the vast majority of people, this time of year are slowing down, and in a few weeks they'll be at a standstill, they'll be stopped. Some will even be backing up. They're going nowhere in the race of life. Is that going to be you? Or are you going to be the person who's going forward? The person who's still pedal to the metal, so to speak, going full speed ahead into your great success. Going into the next year to become a greater success. Not stagnant, not being a loser, not failing, not having to pick up where you left off because you gave up toward the end of the year, but that person who's a great success, and you're just going from one success to another because you chose to create that and you chose to partner with God and do the things that are required to become that great success in honor to God, in honor to the fact you have the breath of life. And you give your all and you do your all unto the Lord Jesus. My friend, I pray this is a blessing for you. May God bless you richly.